I'm Ashley Brooke Nicholas. I am a lifestyle and motherhood blogger, and today I'm partnering with Advent Health for Women, and we are discussing everything you need to know about VBACs, with Dr. Ashley Hill, who is a board-certified OBGYN. I am an expecting mother myself. We're expecting our second baby girl later this summer in August, and I'm hoping to have a successful VBAC myself, so I'm excited to learn alongside with you guys. So thank you for being with us today, Dr. Ashley Hill. Would you mind giving us a brief introduction so we can get to know you?
Sure, Ashley. I have the best job in all of medicine. I'm the medical director of Advent Health Obstetrics and Gynecology here across Central Florida. I am the chair of our academic obstetrics and gynecology department, and I have some academic titles at UCF and Florida State. So I get to do a lot of great things. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. It's so comforting to know that the women of Central Florida have a great resource to you that they can reach out to. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today. And just so you know, today's discussion is an open forum. So all of the information you receive shouldn't replace medical advice from your doctor. So if you do have a specific question about your individual health, be sure to reach out to your doctor for more accurate and personalized advice. So let's get started. Today we are going to be talking about VBACs. Would you be so kind as to let us know what is a VBAC?
You got it. VBAC is an acronym that stands for vaginal birth after cesarean.
Okay.
So some women have to have a C-section or have a C-section in their first or second baby or so, and they would like to have a natural delivery the next time. So I like to say there's another acronym that jumps in there called TOLAC. So in medicine we like to abbreviate everything, right? Because the words are long. And that stands for trial of labor after cesarean. So a trial of labor is what you do when you want to have a natural delivery. A VBAC is when you are successful.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying.
We'll just use VBAC today because it's easier.
It's easier. I think this is really important information because, like you said, so many women have C-sections the first time around, but they're not aware that it may not be necessary for their subsequent deliveries. So it's great to talk about. And on a personal note, I want to add that, as I mentioned, I'm hoping to have a successful VBAC myself, and I think it's important to find a practice and a hospital that is supportive of trial of labor and VBACs. With that being said, does Advent Health for Women support VBACs?
So you're exactly right, Ashley. The critical thing is to find someone you can partner with. You're on the journey together. You can have conversations. You can look at the risk and benefits. Across Central Florida, we have 4 main laboring hospitals, and all 4 of those hospitals support VBACs.
That is amazing. It's really good to know. I know myself, I had to seek out a practice because the first practice I went to wasn't supportive of VBAC, so I was really happy to find Advent Health for Women and this practice and have the information and support that I needed. So let's go on to a few more questions. What are some of the common factors that could affect the possibility of a successful VBAC?
Okay, so actually there's actually a calculator that you can look up online, and doctors use it to a midwives. And we plug in things and it talks about your height and your weight and your race and why you had a first C-section and all that. So there are things that some women can do, or women can do, to actually improve their chances of a successful VBAC.
Okay.
And those are modifiable things. One of those is to try to keep your weight as close to normal as possible, called a body mass index.
Okay.
The heavier you are, the less likelihood of a successful VBAC. So we try to ask folks who are thinking of that for the next pregnancy to try to exercise and diet, and it's good for you anyway. The second thing would be to wait 1.5 years between when you delivered your last baby and when you conceive your next baby.
Okay.
So a couple years between deliveries, and that's actually been shown to improve your chance of a successful VBAC. Okay. Other things would be having a baby that's normal size. So like diabetic moms, if they work on their blood sugars, that helps. Other would be, I guess, not having triplets or quadruplets or something like that.
And is that something that your doctors will inform you? I know that you said that they use the calculator to determine, the potential for your successful VBAC. Is that something that they will inform you of that might change throughout your pregnancy?
It could change. So the calculator is not set in gold. First of all, I've had ladies who have a very low success rate have a successful VBAC, a predicted success rate. So I have a successful VBAC. There are other ladies that are in the 90th percentile that the baby turns sideways and they don't have a successful VBAC. So it's not set in gold, but it just gives you a standard. From a medical perspective, if the rate of success is less than about 60%, then there is a higher chance of complications. So that's something you and your doctor would need to sit down and talk about.
Okay, good to know. So we are going to go on to our first question. Brianna wants to know, do moms have a choice in whether or not they have a VBAC?
So Brianna, yes and no. If you find a practice that supports VBAC, absolutely. So let me back up a little bit. Back in the 1980s, around 1985, only 5% of women in the United States had a VBAC. And then it went up to about 30% 10 years later, and then it dropped again, and now it's on the upswing again. So there were many hospitals in the 1990s, mostly because of malpractice stuff, that dropped having VBAC. I think there was something like 400 or 500 hospitals that quit doing it. And then as time has changed and we know more about that process, more hospitals are coming online. So the first step is to find a medical practice that supports you, and the second step is to find out if that doctor goes to the hospital that supports that.
Okay, good to know. And
so yes, they do have a choice.
Good. It's good to know that moms always have a choice. And with that being said, when you're expecting, I know you said there is a calculator, but is that the best way to know that you are a candidate for a VBAC, or what would you recommend moms do? So
like a lot of things in medicine, in my opinion, this requires a very careful discussion with your doctor or midwife. And you look at your whole picture, the baby, you, what's going on, your age, all those things, and then you come up with a plan together. And then you go down that path together, and hopefully nothing jumps in the way to throw a wrench in it. So it's one of those things in medicine that we value a lot. We actually make a special appointment for our pregnant ladies who are thinking of a VBAC just to discuss that, because you want the time to do it the right way.
Okay, perfect. So when you're seeking out an OBGYN, ask them specifically, and they can give you further information.
Yeah, and hopefully the schedulers will know. You know, if you've had 9 prior C-sections, there's really not going to be anybody that's going to be comfortable doing a VBAC, and you should know that going in before you make the appointment.
Okay, good to know. So we have another question from one of our viewers. Sarah wants to know, what is the average success of a VBAC?
So Sarah, great question. The average success of a VBAC is about 60 to 70%. And I'm going to jinx myself. I was just bragging earlier. Over the past 3 or 4 months, I've had 100% success rate, but over time, my success rate is about 70%. So most of the time in the country, that's what you'll see.
And now I know you mentioned that the number of prior C-sections can affect your candidacy. Yeah. Can a mom who's had 2 prior C-sections have a VBAC?
In most cases, yes. Depends on what the first C-section scar was like inside the body. Okay. There are a fair number of doctors who aren't really comfortable taking care of ladies who have had 2 prior C-sections because there's not as much scientific evidence. But it seems to be as safe as having a VBAC after 1 section. So most people will do it.
That's good to know, because I don't think a lot of moms who have had multiple C-sections would know that that's even a possibility.
And twins. Some doctors will do VBACs with twins.
Wow, that's incredible. So we have another question from Amanda, and she wants to know, if you have gestational diabetes, will that affect the chances of a VBAC?
That's from Amanda? So yes. Amanda, if your sugars are in good control and the baby's not huge, then you should have the same risk as everybody else. Where the risk worsens is if the baby is very large, say 9.5, 10 pounds. And those ladies tend not to have as high of a success rate.
And is that something that your doctor would make you aware of as your pregnancy goes on to let you know the size of the baby might be a factor?
You would, and so with gestational diabetes as compared to normal non-pregnant ladies, we are super tight on the control. We want those sugars like right on line, and that will help keep the baby at a normal weight.
Good to know. Now, what are some of the other risks of choosing the route of having a VBAC?
So let me back up a little bit. There are some things where your doctor is going to probably say you shouldn't have a VBAC, and there aren't many, thankfully. That would be if you have an up and down cut inside your body, not the outside cut. Okay. The outside cut doesn't really matter. It's an inside cut. Thankfully, those are quite rare in the United States. I don't think I've done one of those in 5 years. It just doesn't happen very often. The other would be if you've had a lot of fibroid tumors removed from the outside of your uterus, and you had a lot of scars on there. And then it would be like triplets or quadruplets or babies that are sideways, or maybe the placenta too low. So there aren't many reasons not to have one. The main risk of having a VBAC is something called uterine rupture. And it's thankfully only about 1 in 100, 1 in 200 times. It's usually when the lady's pushing the baby out, and it sounds dramatic, but again, it's not very common. The scar inside the uterus will separate and open up, and the baby can pop out of that. And I've seen my share of those, and it's very dramatic for everybody. And so, as long as you've had a sideways cut on the uterus, the risk of that is lower.
Okay. Well, it's good to know. I know that, my main goal is to have a safe delivery and a healthy baby. So when that happens, the doctors are prepped and they're able to handle that very quickly.
Well, so one of the things we advise, and I advise, is that ladies who are thinking of having a VBAC have this in or near a hospital. Either an attached birth center or inside the hospital, and not at home or somewhere else. Because if you do have this, and again, it's rare, but if you do have this, it's a life and death, run down the hallway, top speed thing to get the baby out. So we like it to be close to the operating room.
That's really good to know so that moms can be prepared. There may be this risk, so just in case, like you said, it is,
Yeah, just in case. We
just
keep our eye open for
better
it,
safe
but
than sorry.
not very common.
So we have another question from one of our viewers. Veronica wants to know, are there ways to induce a mom who wants a VBAC?
So Veronica, you can induce a mom who wants a VBAC. In fact, some studies show that if you get to your due date and go past your due date, the success is lower. So a lot of doctors, if you make it to your due date, will say, well, we weren't going to induce you, but now we kind of suggest that we look that way. So you can use Pitocin. There's a really cool device called a balloon. And it's either a catheter or a two-sided balloon. Think of something like the size of a golf ball. And you just slide it in the cervix very gently. It's kind of like getting a pap smear. Blow the balloon up, and you sit there for 10 or 12 hours. You can watch, streaming video. You can walk around. You can take a shower. You can eat. And while it's in there, it's opening your cervix up manually. Then when you take it out, you give a little Pitocin, dilate, and hopefully go into labor. The one thing we don't use are medicines called prostaglandins. Those are dangerous if you've had a prior C-section.
Good to know. Now we had a follow-up question from our mom Amanda, who had the gestational diabetes, and she wanted to know if that would affect her chances of a VBAC. And I know you had mentioned one of the risk factors is the baby's size, and she had mentioned her first baby was 9 pounds 1 ounce without gestational diabetes. Is that something that she should make her doctors aware of so they know she might be? Or if you've had a larger baby during your first pregnancy, would you be more likely to have the same size for the second?
Depends on a lot of things, but sometimes, yeah. Some people just make big babies. It's just how they are. So Amanda, I would definitely tell your doctor about that.
Okay,
it's something it's probably going to be fine, but I would tell.
Perfect. Now, I've heard this from a lot of moms in my circle that they say that they feel like their doctor is maybe dismissive of their questions.
Yeah.
So what is the best way to help moms be fully informed about the options for VBACs specifically in their situation? How can they make sure they're heard?
So actually, this is where it really requires some time to talk and have a doctor or a midwife that listens to you and participates in your care. I'm always saddened to hear that doctors are dismissive. I hate that, but that's the fact of life. Not everybody listened to their mom and dad growing up and
Yes.
were raised the right way, right? So it requires a conversation. So I go in with an open mind. Please don't be defensive. Go in and talk and sit down, have some questions written down. Sometimes people get to the doctor, they get a little nervous. So I think it's kind of like going to visit Santa Claus, right? You have your list of things you want.
Yes.
So you sit down, you ask some questions. And then just listen and say, are you supportive of my desire to have a VBAC? And hopefully the doctor's honest, says, we're on your side, let's do it. Or you're not a really good candidate, I'm uncomfortable. And maybe I'm pointing between that. So. Yep.
So I know we've discussed some of the risk factors for potentially not being able to have a VBAC. Would you be able to go into detail of any other reasons or concerns where attempting a VBAC may not be a good decision? Are there any other medical conditions or?
It's more, so there are reasons why some women, let me back up. There are some conditions or situations during pregnancy where a woman shouldn't have a natural delivery whether she's had a C-section or not.
Okay.
And there aren't many of those. Most women should be able to have a natural delivery. But sometimes the placenta is too low and it just won't move out of the way. Or you have twins and both babies are breech.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things where we call those absolute contraindications. You're not going to find any doctor anywhere in the whole world who's going to agree to do it because it's dangerous. So those aside, the specific ones would be a baby that's very large, a mom that's older, a mom who came into pregnancy quite overweight. Those are all things that can influence a VBAC success. But again, I have had plenty of ladies who have a successful VBAC who aren't the perfect weight or perfect height or whatever, and so it requires a conversation.
Okay, good to know. So Beth, I want you to know that I see your question. I'm having a little bit of trouble, Selena, I'm seeing your question, having a little bit of trouble reading it on this device, so I'm going to get some help, so I will address you in just a second. But in the meantime, let's move on to Beth's question. Okay. What are some of the pros of having a VBAC?
Hey Beth, good question. Okay, so there are several of those. One would be, I'll go carefully on these, one would be shorter recovery time, shorter hospital stay.
Wow.
I think improved bonding. Advent Health, we do skin to skin as soon as we can after a C-section, but some hospitals don't do that. Mm-hmm. And so the mom is saying, where's my baby? Give me my baby. And they're doing things to the baby, and mom wants her baby. She's worked hard, right? And so I think it improves your bonding and your breastfeeding and your skin to skin. There's less pain. There's also a benefit in terms of, this is a lunchtime Facebook Live, so I'll be careful on this.
Yes.
But I'm always amazed when when ladies say to me, I didn't realize you're so far in there when you're doing a C-section. We're all the way in there. We're as in as you can get. It's a major operation. It's similar to a hysterectomy in how deep you go inside the abdomen. So the recovery can be long and painful for some ladies. I think there's a faster time going back to work. There's less chance of a wound infection. There's a lot of benefits to that.
Perfect. That's good to know. So I can see your question now, Selena. So she said that she actually had a pretty rough experience, unfortunately, for her first time as a mom. She had preeclampsia, which led to emergency C-section. What are the risks of having complications with the next pregnancy? Because she's really hoping for a VBAC.
So, was this Selena?
Yes, Selena.
Okay, so Selena, I'm sorry you went through so much. That's a tough situation. Preeclampsia is a very bad condition. For folks who may not know, that's when your blood pressure goes up during pregnancy. Amazingly, we don't really know what causes it, but it affects quite a few women, and it can be very dangerous. So sometimes you just have to get the baby out and you have to do a C-section. That said, there's a couple things that the average lady can do. So talk to your doctor. One would be to start baby aspirin around your 4th month or 16 weeks of pregnancy.
Okay.
And that actually has been shown to decrease the risk of preeclampsia in the next pregnancy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty great thing. We actually, when we see patients here at Advent Health for their first visit, we actually ask them those questions so we can get them on the baby aspirin if they need to. And baby aspirin is very safe, not full strength, but baby aspirin. The other thing is that if it's the same father of the baby, your chance actually is lower.
Oh,
but if Selena has remarried and there's a different man involved, then the chance goes back up to where it was before. So there you go.
Well, I hope that eased some of your concerns, Selena, and prepared you for what to do during the remainder of your pregnancy. And I wanted to give a compliment to you. Alika wanted to say that she actually had a successful VBAC with you guys.
Oh, very cool. Congratulations.
So congratulations. That's good to hear a good success story. We also have a question from Emily. At the practice that she is seeing, there are several doctors, and some of them are supportive of VBACs, and some of them are not. So how would you recommend handling the non-supportive doctor if you go into labor and they're the doctor on call?
Okay, who is that?
Emily.
Emily, okay. Emily, that's the hardest question so far. All right, so thank you. What we've done in our practice, which has 8 physicians and 6 midwives, is we meet every month, and we don't talk about it every month, but we talk about it several times a year, is how we manage patients who are having VBACs, and we try to make sure everyone is on the same page. That said, sometimes I've heard that's difficult. If you're in a practice where 2 or 3 of the doctors are very positive about having VBAC and a couple of them say, I'm not really comfortable with that, I hate to say it, it's a pretty rough situation because you don't know who's going to be there. And you could try to get one of the supportive doctors to come in, but if they're in the operating room or they've been up all night, they're probably not going to, it's not safe to do it.
Yes.
So, I think with the doctors who aren't supportive, actually I would find the medical director of that practice and ask him or her, hey, what's your take on this? And let them talk it out with you. And then one, they may not be aware of the lack of support by the other doctors, and that's a chance for them to do their medical director job. But they also can get in and say, look, we're going to move you down this track because we want to be successful. So it's a great question, and it's a hard answer. I'm sorry.
I think that's great information, and I think I would encourage all of you guys to seek out those answers early in your pregnancy. Don't wait until the last minute. Speak to your doctor, communicate, like you said, with the medical director of your practice, just so you guys can create a game plan together. So I have a question. So I know you were saying that the rate of the possibility of a successful VBAC may change during your pregnancy.
It can.
How far in advance would your provider be able to tell you if that chance has changed? Is that something they'll be continually making you aware? Obviously, anything can happen at the last minute, but...
Well, I think it's something you should talk about every visit.
Okay.
And say, how am I doing? Am I on track? This is an important goal for me. And get an assessment and shared collaborative care, right? But there are times where we'll do both. I had a lady not too long ago who was breech, and she showed up at the hospital and she really wanted a VBAC. And I said, there's plenty of water around the baby. We can try it. And we went through the risk and benefits, and we were able to successfully turn the baby, and she was able to have a natural delivery. And I was really happy about that. That was great. We did something really nice for her. It was important to her. She, really was positive about it, and it worked. Other times, you may find out that your blood pressure is going through the roof, and you're 39 weeks, and you're a perfect VBAC candidate, and now we need to get the baby out, and there's no time to induce, and now you're going to. And so, the hardest thing for pregnant ladies, is it's kind of like a wedding, right? Most women who get married, they have their special day in mind, right? And it's going to be perfect, and the goal is to get married to the love of your life, to your partner, right? So the videographer doesn't show up, or it rains that day, or the uncle acts crazy and does some weird things. You're still going to get married to the love of your life. So
Yes.
in my perspective, if you're a healthy lady, have a healthy delivery, and you had a great experience, it's a win for everybody. Sometimes it's just not exactly how you planned it to be, unfortunately.
I completely agree, and I think that's a great mindset to go into. I know personally it rained on my wedding day. Still married, still happily married. And I also had a last minute unexpected C-section, and my daughter was born healthy, and she's healthy and thriving, and that is important to me. So I have another compliment for you. Lonnie, yes, Lonnie wants to say that she loves and supports all of your work, and she is a labor and delivery nurse and doula.
Oh, very cool. Oh, both. I got the full thing there.
Yes, so you're getting some props
That's
from the
good.
community. And
By the way, can I say something?
Absolutely.
What was that?
Lonnie.
Oh, yeah, hey Lonnie. So I used to have a rule: if you're a doula and you're going to show up one of my deliveries, you had to bring me cookies. But a few pounds later, I've canceled that. So don't. I found
It no
out,
longer applies.
Well, I found out a doula I'd never met before said, "Oh, I know you. They call you the Cookie Monster." Not cool. Okay, so we're not going down that road anymore. But thank you very much.
And there's another compliment. Elizabeth wants to say she's 37 and a half weeks at your practice and having a wonderful
Awesome.
experience.
I love to hear that. That's what we
So
want.
lots of good words
Thanks,
all
Elizabeth.
around.
Appreciate it.
I have one more question from Selena. Are there risks? I think we went over this before. Are there risks when the mom is overweight and having a VBAC?
So this is a really tough conversation because weight is a very sensitive subject. But one of my jobs as a doctor is to do the best thing I can to counsel my patients for their health. So just like when I go to the doctor, they say, "Hey, lose a couple pounds and exercise more."
Yes.
I say the same thing to people, right? And I try to listen. If you're overweight going into pregnancy, then there are there are a lot of risks, unfortunately. Diabetes, high blood pressure, stillbirth, preterm labor, and having a C-section.
Okay.
So if there are folks out there listening and they're not pregnant yet and they're thinking of being pregnant, and this is a motivator to maybe hit the gym a little bit and eat better, that's awesome. And then we've had a great day for that. So that's one of those things.
Okay, perfect. So we are running a little bit low on time, but I want to sneak in my own question for Dr. Hill, since I'm hoping to have a VBAC. So as long as nothing changes with my chance, as in my discussions with my doctor, when I go to the hospital, I'm in active labor, are there any things that I can do or decisions that I could make that potentially improve my chances of having a successful VBAC?
Great question. Okay. One, and here's a shout out to the doulas.
Okay.
So a doula is a birth coach. I know there's more complexity to it than that, but that's basically what a doula does. Okay. And they're there to support the mom. I'm, of course, the doctors and nurses and midwives are there to support the mom too, but we're also doing job things that we have to do.
No problem.
No worries, there you go. Thank you. So having someone there who's supportive with you, whether that's a family member or a doula or your husband or partner, that's really key. The second is having a good mindset, being healthy going and having a good mindset. And then the third would be, I think, try to stay as mobile as you can during labor, in the bed. Some people get an epidural, that's fine, right? Just get an epidural, the nurse will roll you side to side. All those things have been shown to decrease your chance of having a C-section.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Thanks you for sharing all of your information, and thank you for tuning in at home. Be sure to tune into our next Facebook Live next month, where we're going to be discussing everything that you really need to bring in your hospital bag when you go to the hospital. In the meantime,
cookies.
Yeah, yes, cookies are never a bad idea. So in the meantime, be sure to follow along at Advent Health for Women on Facebook. They're always sharing useful tips for women of all ages. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.